You ever wonder what really goes on during one of those high-pressure freelance gigs? I'm not talking about the shiny finished product. I mean the messy, behind-the-scenes reality of it all. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on a real $500 motion design project that had to get done in just 2 days. We're going to see every single challenge and every tough decision that was made.
Okay, so this quote right here, this is pretty much the heart of the whole thing. It's a fantastic insight from the creator of this project, and it sets up this great myth versus reality idea. The myth is that more cash means more crazy, complicated stuff. But the reality? The real value is in being smart, clean, and deliberate. Let's see how that idea holds up when the pressure is on.
And when I say pressure, I really mean it. This is the single biggest thing driving every single choice in this story. Just 48 hours from the client's first message to handing over the final files. There's absolutely zero room for error. Or is there?
So, the challenge is officially on. A client needs a cinematic motion design reel for their Instagram. The budget is $500 and the deadline is, well, it's now. Let's break down exactly what they were asking for.
The brief is actually pretty specific. They're looking for a 30 to 40-second video with 3 to 5 totally unique scenes. The creative ask is to mix some existing footage, this cool liquid glass stuff, with new, modern animations and typography. And of course, the whole thing needs a full sound design to tie it all together. That is a ton of work for a 2-day turnaround.
Look, with a deadline this tight, you can't just dive in head first and hope for the best. The first step, the professional step, is to build a blueprint. And that always starts with getting on the same page visually with a mood board.
So the visual goal, the plan, was to smash together 3 really distinct styles. You had the sleek, liquid glass look, some abstract shapes to give it a modern vibe, and then these things called proximity animations. That's basically where objects on screen react to each other as they get closer or further apart. It's a really clear but pretty ambitious target to aim for.
And this right here, this is a classic professional workflow. First, you get the mood board to lock in the vision. Second, you get the voiceover done so you know your timing. Third, you build a rough cut to see where all the holes are. And only then, fourth, do you start designing the custom stuff. It's logical, it's organized, but you know what they say about the best laid plans.
And here's where the story takes a hard left turn. This is that moment where the clean, neat plan just smacks right into a brick wall of technical reality. And the first big problem came from what seemed like a really simple idea for an animation.
46. Any idea what that number is? That is how many iPhones have been released up to that point. The editor had this cool idea to do a match cut sequence, showing them all one after the other. Sounds easy enough, right?
I mean, look at this plan. It's 2 steps. This should have been the easiest part of the entire project. You download the images, the PNGs with the transparent backgrounds, you throw them in a sequence, and boom, you're done. That was the expectation.
But the reality, that was something else entirely. This is that unglamorous part of creative work that nobody ever shows you. So here's the problem. Every single one of those 46 images downloaded as a JPEG, not a PNG. For anyone who doesn't do design work, that means they all had a solid background that had to be removed, by hand, one by one. It ended up being hours of just mind-numbing Photoshop work. The creator literally said it had him questioning every life choice. And honestly, we've all been there.
So after losing all that precious time on the phones, the next big problem shows up, the proximity animation. The setup was right, the logic made sense, but the code, the special expressions that make the magic happen, it just kept breaking. He tried redoing it, he spent hours debugging, and still, nothing. It just wouldn't work.
This is one of my favorite parts of this whole story. After hours of just hitting his head against the wall, he didn't give up. He did what a real pro does. He admitted he was stuck, and he called someone with a fresh pair of eyes for help. Sometimes that's the smartest and fastest thing you can do.
Okay, the clock is ticking loudly at this point. With time running out and all these technical problems eating up hours, the project hit a major turning point. The goal couldn't be about making something absolutely perfect anymore. It had to be about getting something great delivered.
This timeline really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? Day 1 was basically lost to that tedious iPhone job. Day 2 was a war with broken code. And now, with just hours left, that deadline isn't some far-off idea. It is right on top of them.
And this slide right here is the perfect example of the new strategy.
The ideal plan was to build that cool liquid glass effect from scratch, super ambitious but way too time-consuming. The realistic solution? Use a high-quality pre-made template as a starting point and then customize it with a simple effect that mimics liquid metal to make it your own. It's the definition of working smarter, not harder.
So with the biggest problems finally solved, it was just a mad dash to the finish line. The last few hours were a total blur of building out scenes as fast as possible, adding in dynamic speed ramps to give it energy, and wrapping it all up with that crucial sound design. The focus was 100% on just getting it done.
So, after all the stress, the troubleshooting, and that race against the clock, what happened? Let's look at how it was delivered, the final numbers, and the big lesson to take away from all this.
And it was a complete success. The project was delivered right on time, the client loved it and approved it immediately, and, get this, they didn't ask for a single revision. That just proves that all those smart, pragmatic choices made under pressure were absolutely the right ones.
So let's talk money. How did the numbers actually shake out? Well, the client order was for $500. The platform, Fiverr, took its 20% cut, which is $100. So the final payout was $400 for 2 pretty intense days of work. Not bad at all for a quick turnaround project. When you boil it all down, the big takeaway is this. The process wasn't about flashy, complicated effects. It was about making smart, deliberate choices every step of the way. It's about knowing when you have to grind through the boring stuff, knowing when to ask for help, and knowing when to find a shortcut to hit that deadline. That's the real skill.
And this Steve Jobs quote, which was actually used in the final video itself, just nails it. Final design worked. Not just because it looked cool, but because it worked within all the constraints, the time, the budget, and the tech issues. That is what professional design is all about.
And that really leaves us with one last question to chew on. In the real world, with real clients and real deadlines, is chasing after perfect actually the enemy of getting something great delivered? After hearing this story, I think the answer is pretty clear.